Back here with Brian Westbrook, and it's time for us to go viral. USC opened their season with a 31-23 win over Fresno State on Saturday, but it was the student section that the internet was going crazy over. Check this out. The student section couldn't quite nail this one.
Oh, come on. I mean, listen, the G went to the bathroom, left early.
Yep.
At least they're in the right order. I don't think that's the worst one, man. The G just had places to be, had to go somewhere. I just not into the body paint thing. All right, let me ask you this.
They should have just sat down. If you don't have the G in there, you sit down, you're trying to move on to the next one.
Or
you don't stand up and still celebrate.
Maybe in college it's different. No, there's another word that we're going to be able to fit there. As a pro, if you see a grown man in body paint, you're judging him, right?
Yeah, you're like, come on, bro.
You're not just like, oh, diehard fan. Right. You're like, okay.
Well, I'll tell you, in Philly, we had a bunch of people that wore body paint and had no problem with it. Freezing cold body paint.
Not just on games, too.
No problem, absolutely. So, I mean, it's a little different. Yeah. Different world in Philly.
Yeah, listen, folks in Philly, if you're over 22 years old, you can't paint your body.
Don't hate.
Come on. I don't care how good. It's not body shaming. Doesn't matter how good you look. Just can't do it, man. You got to mature out of it.
I just want you to know there's a Seinfeld reference I can make that I'm choosing not to make because I know
Putty at the hockey game, Jenna.
You see, you love Seinfeld. I wish
Jenna, I'm aware of it. I also know things about World War II. They're not relevant to the show.
Start your warning. Oh, relevant to the show? Oh, sponsored by Gillette Clear Gel. Heisman hopeful Jalen Hurts starting off his campaign with a bang last night in his Oklahoma debut, finishing 20 of 23, 332 passing yards, 3 touchdowns to go along with 176 rushing yards and another 3 scores on the ground. Wow. Oklahoma took down Houston 49-31. Nick, should we just pencil in Lincoln Riley and the Sooners for a 3rd straight Heisman?
If Jalen Hurts does win the Heisman, Lincoln Riley should get one himself. Yeah. If you get 3 straight quarterbacks in their 3 straight years where they win the Heisman under you, it'd be absolutely remarkable. You can't pencil him in for the Heisman, but he's certainly one of the leading contenders. I mean, the 500 total yards, 6 total touchdowns, 3 total incompletions. Just a master course in quarterback play by Jalen Hurts, his first game at the University of Oklahoma.
Heisman voters love numbers. These are the type of numbers that you want to see, especially for Heisman hopefuls. I'll tell you this. If Lincoln Riley produces another Heisman winner, he'll be knocking on the door of the NFL pretty doggone soon.
And right now, he's got to be approaching NFL dollars from Oklahoma.
No doubt about it, yeah.
But, I mean, this is really special. And how about this real quick, Brian? Could we get an Oklahoma-Alabama college football playoff game? Maybe a little Jalen Hurts revenge game?
Right. He deserves it.
That would be great.
Moving on to Ezekiel Elliott now. Rumors were out there that the Cowboys were close to wrapping up contract talks with Zeke. But Yahoo's Charles Robinson is reporting the opposite, that the team is actually frustrated with the latest exchange between the two sides. Brian, we going to see Zeke week 1?
You know, I don't think that you're going to see him week 1. I think that, you know, the Cowboys, they should have got this deal done long ago. Even if you do see him, I think he'll still be on that pitch count. If I'm Zeke, I'm frustrated at the Cowboys. You told me I'm going to be one of the highest paid running backs, the highest paid running backs in the offseason, and you don't follow through on your promise. I can imagine what my wife would say if I said, I'm going to marry you, and I just don't marry her. I never propose. That's going to be a problem. Same thing here for Zeke. The Cowboys, they played their hand completely wrong. They need Zeke in that locker room. They need him on that football.
Yeah, the Cowboys should have just followed the always good advice of say less. And if they hadn't said where it starts at Todd Gurley, then they'd be in a better position. At this point, I think you have to, if you were, Fox Bet would offer me even odds. Is Zeke going to play week 1, yes or no? I think the smart money would be on no, which means Giants +7 might be a tasty little bet in week 1.
Say less has never been the Cowboys mantra.
Or mine.
They're saying something every day.
That advice.
No.
I thought you were going to.
Moving on to LaShawn McCoy, the all-pro running back was cut by the Bills on Saturday, and the Chiefs quickly came in to scoop him up and sign Shady, reunite him with his old head coach Andy Reid. Brian, can Reid rejuvenate LaShawn McCoy?
Absolutely. I mean, I still love LaShawn McCoy. I think he's one of the best running backs in the league for the last 10 years. And I'll tell you this. In Buffalo these last few years, he's just been terrible because they don't have a great offensive line. They didn't have very good quarterback play. They put him in a bad situation. He's facing 8, 9-man boxes. But I think now you go out to Kansas City, you'll be facing light boxes, 5 or 6 men in the box because everybody's expecting Patrick Mahomes to throw the ball down the field. They have an embarrassing amount of nice players, dominant dominant players, one of the best receivers in Hill, one of the best tight ends in Kelsey. Now you add to that Mahomes, of course, and LaShawn McCoy. I think that offense will be hard to stop.
I've got to say, you and Bart Scott maybe have increased my optimism on this about 20-fold. Bart said he thinks he can get 1,800 yards from scrimmage. Wow. You said he can be rejuvenated. I think this is a nice pickup for the Chiefs. I don't think it was one they desperately needed, but once you saw he was cut by Buffalo, I think that most people thought, okay, him, Andy Reid, that offense, good fit. But you guys might change my opinion. I thought this was bigger name than production, but listening to you guys, I already have the Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. I might just up that to undefeated season.
Well, he didn't have the production of Buffalo because they weren't very good. That's the biggest
And he
thing.
was their only weapon. That is fair. He never had a good quarterback behind him. In front of him, behind him.
Aaron Rodgers, like Tom Brady's got a plan for how much longer he wants to play football. Implementing that plan, that's the tricky part. At 35 years old, Aaron Rodgers sees another 10 years in him. But the Packers missed the playoffs the last 2 seasons, so that 10-year plan, that better come with some urgencies. Here's Rodgers on the Rich Eisen Show, laying out the picture-perfect end to his career.
In the Super Bowl when I'm 45 and right off into the sunset.
Nice. Do you envision yourself playing deep into your 40s if you can?
We'll see. I mean, I envision playing as long as my body feels good and I have, the love for the game that I do right now. That still fuels me. It's still a passion, and I still love the daily grind and the practice and the preparation. And if I can give everything to the team in that manner, then and my body feels good, I'm gonna keep rolling.
All right, Brian, let's talk about where Aaron Rodgers' window is right now. Do you feel like it's closing on him winning another Super Bowl?
Every year, you're in the NFL, your window is closing. You've got a brand new head coach. I think they're still trying to figure out if they're going to have a running game. And I think for Aaron Rodgers, not making the playoffs last year just signifies that this window is getting smaller. And as you get older, he's 35 years old, you start to say, how much time do I have left? And of course, he wants to play another 10 years. Hard to say that he has the ability to do that. I'll tell you what he needs to do if he wants to play 10 more years. Same thing that Tom Brady did. Go find yourself a convincing run game that you can lean on every single game. Right now, they haven't had that. They haven't had that ever. Almost since the time Aaron Rodgers has been there. They have to find themselves a run game if they want to be productive. If he wants to elongate his career, he has to make sure that their coaching staff does that.
I think it's very clear the window is not closed. I think Brian's point that once you reach your prime, and then each year the window starts to close a little bit more because you start getting closer to the end of your prime. The question for Aaron Rodgers that I think will be answered one way or another this year, I obviously think it'll be answered in a positive way because I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl, is Aaron Rodgers still in his prime? Or was Aaron Rodgers, have we added years on the back end? I think it was partial injury. I understand he played throughout the year, but clearly he was compromised first 5-6 weeks of the season after that knee injury against Buffalo or against Chicago, to where he couldn't run around, do the things we're used to seeing him do. But I also think the relationship got stale, the scheme got stale, and Aaron, whether it was his fault or not that the relationship went the way it did, I don't think you were getting the best out of him because I think he was, I don't want to say checked out, but mentally not as sharp as he typically is. They finally spent money on defense. They brought in a new head coach. They are going to run the ball more. How much more we will see, but we know they will. Matt LaFleur's Titans ran the ball more than any team in the AFC last year. And I think it's going to produce an MVP caliber season for Aaron Rodgers, and people once again saying that's the most talented quarterback in football.
What the Saints did with Drew Brees is put talent around him. They got himself a run game. Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara. We know that they can run the ball, catch the ball out of the backfield. One of the best receivers in the game, Mike Thomas. They throw in there the tight end as well. They put some guys around him to make that team better so that Drew Brees doesn't have to carry everything. Same thing for Aaron Rodgers. As you age, you can't expect him to be the same guy he was when he was 28, 29 in his prime. But as he gets older, you have to put more people around him, better players, to take the weight off of his shoulders.
But can you expect him to be okay with letting the offense change around him? Can you expect him to be okay with having a hot young quarterback and a coach and Matt LaFleur come in, change the offense away from what he's good at, where he basically can have control there and say, hey, just trust me, I have a good way to figure this out?
Well, if you're Aaron Rodgers, you've been doing it your way for the last 3 years. Haven't made to the playoffs. So now you have to trust that your young new coach is going to say, okay, we're going to do it a different way, and maybe the results will be different. For Aaron, you have to give up some of that control so that you can try to win some more games. Right now, I'm not sure that he's ready for that. As you get older, see what Tom Brady just did it. gives up a little bit of control, allow the running game to control their team, Aaron Rodgers needs to start thinking the same way.
Last year, they were obviously just a brutal team on the road. You remember Aaron Rodgers when they finally went on a little bit of they had the stirring comeback victory against a terrible team, pardon me, on national television. He went through the list, and they did not do what he said they needed to do. This year, we're going to find out immediately. At Chicago to open the season, home for Minnesota. Now, if I'm the Packers, I like that that's how my season's starting. I like that I get Chicago to start the season, as Mitch Trubisky, this young, is probably better at the end of the year than beginning of the year. Thursday night doesn't matter if it's first game of the year. It's not a short week. And then you get an extra half week to prepare for Minnesota. If you can start the year 2-0 against the two teams in your division that could compete for the division, you can put yourself in the driver's seat early, pardon me, and that is going to be critical because Chicago thinks, hey, we were 12-4. We were a double doink away from winning a playoff game, potentially being the NFC representative in the Super Bowl. That, to me, it's not just because it's the first game of the year here in a few days on Thursday night. That's one of the best games of the NFL season. Green Bay at Chicago. Who is Green Bay under Matt LaFleur? Who is Chicago now that they're not the come-out-of-nowhere, trade for Khalil Mack, no expectations team, but a team that a lot of people are picking as the NFC Super Bowl representative?
Nick thinks they're going to the Super Bowl.
Packers.
The Packers. Where do you think the Packers end up in the NFC?
I think they fight to even win their division. I think you just mentioned it. Chicago's defense is tough. The Vikings' defense is tough. And I also think the Vikings' offense is primed to have a big comeback. I think Dalvin Cook coming back healthy, that's going to help them. Obviously, the two receivers that they have, and you throw in Kirk Cousins. I think the Vikings are a tough out for the Packers. And here's the other thing. We still don't know how this relationship between LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers is going to go through the entire season. If it works out the first couple of weeks where you're facing great defenses, it probably has a great chance of working out the entire season. But if these first 2 weeks don't go the right way for Aaron Rodgers in this relationship with his brand new head coach, there could be some questions going on midseason.
I know I'm one of the few people that feel this way. I would be very surprised if there are any stories, real stories, about relationship conflicts this first year. Their incentives are perfectly aligned. LaFleur, this is the best job you can get as a first-time head coach. You get Aaron Rodgers, I believe still in his prime. That franchise that has never been a team that historically is a quick trigger with coaches. For him, he wants nothing more than to get along with Aaron Rodgers. And for Rodgers, if this goes well, then we start looking at the last couple of years, in particular that last year with McCarthy, and say that was a Mike McCarthy problem. If this goes poorly, people start looking at Aaron Rodgers. Why didn't he get along with coaches? Why doesn't he get... So their incentives are perfectly aligned, and I still think he's the most talented quarterback I've ever seen. I think the Packers are going to go to the Super Bowl. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be league MVP, and the Super Bowl window being closed, we're going to look back and say, that was a silly thing to talk about on September 2nd.
I'll tell you this, relationships change when you start losing some games. So they better win early on. And if they don't win early on, the way that you look at the coach and the things that he's doing, Aaron Rodgers has questioned a lot of coaches in the past. And Mike McCarthy is a Super Bowl head coach. He questioned him. I would be worried about that if things don't go right early on in the season.
All right, good stuff. Before we go, DraftKings is home to the biggest prizes in fantasy sports. And this Thursday, new players can play free for a $1 million top prize. Plus, this year, DraftKings is giving everyone a deposit bonus. Whether you're a new or existing player, you can earn up to $500 bonus. New players sign up using promo code FS1. Want to get in